Imagine that moment,
Yeah.
stepping back into a room you know really well, but something just feels off. That's kind of the feeling when ex-lovers meet again. The air is thick, right? Not just with maybe hope, but also with all the ghosts of past failures. It's such a common scene. And yet, when sensible friends see it playing out, their reaction is often, well, irritation, maybe even despair.
Yeah, it's like they see two people just walking straight back towards a cliff they already fell off together. And that irritation, it's usually rooted in some pretty valid skepticism, isn't it?
Definitely.
The assumption is, okay, the only things driving this reunion are probably loneliness, or maybe just forgetting how bad it was,
Yeah.
or just the pull of familiarity, not actual growth.
Right. We tend to be pretty naive about how easy change really is.
Yeah.
So there's this tension on one side saying people never change. Well, that's just foolish. Time, suffering. They can be incredible teachers.
It's true.
But then assuming change is like automatic or easy, that's pure romantic delusion. We need something objective, something to cut through the emotion and demand some actual proof.
We absolutely do. And that's really our mission today. We want to analyze what we're calling the re-entry examination. It's designed to be this intensely rigorous, pretty unsentimental tool. The whole point is to rationally figure out if there's a mature, viable plan here, or if it's just sentimental fantasy.
It sounds almost clinical.
It kind of is. It's so unsexy, so demanding, that if someone actually suggests, hey, should we meet for dinner to talk about getting back together? Your immediate hard-headed response really ought to be, okay, but let's take the exam first.
I love that. It completely reframes it, doesn't it? It makes it less about a whim and more like a serious negotiation, almost contractual. And the scope you mentioned, it sounds intimidating right off the bat. We're talking potentially 7 hours of focused analytical conversation.
Yeah, potentially spread over maybe 5 separate meetings. It's significant.
Wow.
And that points to the core requirement for even proving viability. It's the willingness to dedicate an unusual, maybe even an inordinate amount of time just to the intellectual exploration of past flaws.
Which brings us right to what you call the paradox of true romance. How does that work? How is this incredibly rigorous, frankly tedious-sounding process, 7 hours staring at failure? How is that the truest form of love?
Well, think about how we're conditioned. Movies tell us love is proven by these huge, dramatic gestures, right? Racing to the airport, climbing a clock tower with a rose.
Right, the grand gesture.
That's proof of passion, maybe. And passion's kind of easy in the moment, but real sustainable love, that's proven by the willingness to do the difficult work, the unglamorous work. It's proving you care enough about the other person's future and your own to have this really tough, rigorous conversation.
So instead of abseiling down a building, the real proof is showing you have the tenacity of a lawyer cross-examining your own character flaws.
Exactly. And maybe the steadiness of an accountant reviewing like a disastrous investment portfolio. You're proving maturity, not just intense feeling.
It makes sense. The willingness to analyze the potential horror, the history of the conflict, that makes it less likely to happen again.
Precisely. It shifts a whole foundation away from just emotional ups and downs towards intellectual accountability, which leads us straight into the first big test, the non-negotiable one, the core binary test.
Okay, this sets the tone for everything else you said. What's the essential question here?
It's deceptively simple. Are we sitting here because we have missed one another, or are we here because we have learned things?
Oof, that feels brutal. Because missing someone is such a powerful human driver. How do you even separate those two feelings when they often feel so tangled up? Isn't missing someone sometimes the start of realizing what you lost?
It might be the catalyst, yeah.
Yeah.
Spark. But it is entirely, completely irrelevant to your fitness to return to the relationship.
Irrelevant. That's strong.
Think of it like this. Missing someone is emotional heat. It feels intense, but it doesn't tell you anything about the structural integrity of the potential relationship. You might desperately miss the physical comfort or the shared jokes or just having someone, but you have to be able to step back and recognize you can utterly regret their absence, feel it deeply, and still know that you fundamentally cannot benefit from being with them again, not unless something has changed.
So the purpose is crystal clear then. We're searching for, probing for, signs of actual learning, not just signs of affection or longing.
The sole exclusive reason, the only valid reason for even thinking about a restart, has to be that something fundamental has changed. A pattern of behavior, maybe. A way you react to stress. A deep-seated misunderstanding. Something critical in one or both of you during the time apart.
And nothing else counts.
Nothing else. Not the shared mortgage, not the kids, not the cute nicknames you had, not 20 years of shared history. None of that is relevant to viability. Actual, articulated change is the only valid ticket back in.
Okay, so let's move from feeling change to articulating it. Because this feels like where the exam gets really, really uncomfortable for most people.
Oh, it does.
Many people feel like they've reformed, like they're different. But the exam demands they articulate this change at length and in depth.
Right. It demands performance, not just a promise. We're looking for a minimum of 5 hours of dedicated, structured conversation, talking specifically about your own past emotional immaturity, your idiocy, frankly.
5 hours on your own failings.
Yes. And not just a summary like, yeah, it was difficult. No. An articulation. Can you trace the root cause? Can you explain the mechanism of your failure? Why did you do that thing you did? Over and over.
Now, the natural skeptic in me, and probably in many listeners, is thinking, okay, but that's just talk. Actions speak louder than words, right? Anyone can learn to say the right things, write a good apology script.
It's a fair point. But analytically precise words are not cheap currency. If a person can speak clearly, at length, and with genuine critical insight about their former idiocy, that's not just a script. That signals a dawning wisdom.
Okay.
It proves they have the analytical capacity to understand why they failed. Think of it like a mechanic. If you know exactly why the engine seized up, you're much more likely to fix it properly rather than just restarting it and, hoping for the best.
Which means any hesitation, any reluctance to put in those 5 hours talking about yourself critically, it's a huge red flag.
Massive.
The classic lines, oh, words fail me, or look, I just don't do introspection well.
And an immediate non-starter.
Yeah.
Full stop. If they're potentially willing to subject someone they supposedly love to the same misery cycle again, but they can't stomach a few long, maybe boring conversations about their own part in it, their priorities are just completely wrong.
They haven't done the work.
They haven't done the necessary self-work, and honestly, they don't merit another chance based on that reluctance alone.
Okay, so once that internal change is hopefully articulated, the examination turns its focus outwards again, back to the actual history of the conflict. And this requires immense courage, you say. They have to focus intentionally on what was properly awful about the relationship, not gloss over it.
This is so critical because separated couples, they have the luxury of curating their memories, don't they? They can focus on the sunny picnics and forget the screaming matches.
Sure, nostalgia is selective.
Exactly. But returning couples, they are mandated to do the opposite. They must subject the nightmarish elements, the painful stuff, the genuinely bad moments, the arguments, the cold silences, the moments of cruelty they have to put all that under the microscope. Rigorous analysis.
Wow. It sounds like conducting an intellectual postmortem, but the body is still alive and sitting across the table from you.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. A couple's right to try again is measured almost entirely against their courage in exploring why they failed. Without defensiveness, without impatience. If they can't face the specifics of the awful parts of the past, they are basically guaranteeing they will repeat them. You have to know the dark corners of the house if you're planning to move back in.
That sets an incredibly high bar for honesty, which I guess leads us naturally into setting realistic expectations, because we know people aren't going to magically transform into entirely new beings.
Exactly. Perfection isn't the goal. Honesty is.
So the exam demands brutal honesty about what can't change, the stubborn bits.
Yes. You have to identify those things. The unchangeable aspects of your personality, or maybe theirs, the things that will likely always cause some friction. And then, crucially, you have to devise coping mechanisms together. We often make things so much worse by making these grand, broken promises. I'll never be moody again. I'll always be tidy. It's usually not true. And those broken promises cause way more damage than just saying up front, look, I'm probably always going to be a bit messy, but here's how we can manage it.
Preemptively lowered but realistic expectations.
Exactly. Frank answers now can genuinely spare you decades of pointless squabbling later. Which brings us to the dual flaw analysis.
Dual flaw analysis. Okay. This sounds like mutual confession time about being unbearable.
Pretty much. We're asking both parties to articulate their own unbearable dimensions. It's a two-part confession, really. First, what trouble do I bring into this? How am I specifically difficult to live around? And second, okay, what trouble do you bring? How are you difficult?
Wait a minute. That sounds incredibly confrontational. You're literally asking them to write down the things they find most horrible about the person they supposedly want to get back together with.
It sounds confrontational, but the goal isn't conflict. It's alignment.
Alignment. How?
Think about it. Truly bearable people generally know their unbearable dimensions. They know they get grumpy when tired, or they procrastinate, or whatever it is. So they each write down their analysis of themselves and the other person. And then, this is key, they have to agree on what is most horrible in each person.
Agree on the worst things.
Yes,
Hmm.
because if you both agree upfront that your main flaw is, say, shutting down under stress, and their main flaw is maybe escalating conflict,
Hmm.
then when those things inevitably happen later, the criticism isn't just nagging, it's not a surprise attack.
Ah, I see. It fits into a shared framework.
Exactly. It fits into the shared, agreed-upon project of helping each other manage those specific, acknowledged flaws. It turns potential criticism into a kind of supportive mission.
That completely reframes future conflict. That's powerful.
And that leads naturally to the next step in this self-inventory, the self-audit. This is a critical moment of maturity, I think.
Okay, this self-audit,
Yeah.
what does that involve?
It involves asking yourself really honestly, what anxiety, what unhappiness did I discover during our time apart was actually not your fault? What parts of my life continue to be difficult even when you weren't
Oh,
around?
that's interesting because when you're deep inside a difficult relationship, it's so tempting, isn't it? To blame everything on the partner. Your stress, your low moods, your neuroses, they become the reason for everything bad.
They become the commanding determinant of your whole state of mind, exactly. But then they leave, or you leave, and reality intrudes. You start to realize that, your tendency towards anxiety didn't vanish, or your struggle with procrastination is still there, or that background hum of melancholy. It originated in you, not just in the dynamic between you two.
Life remained complicated and hard, even without them.
Right. And that realization, while maybe humbling, is also incredibly liberating because it reduces all that misplaced blame. It lowers the immense pressure on the returning partner to be this, like, permanent, perfect fix for your entire internal state. They can't be.
Okay, so now we potentially have two people who've articulated their flaws, they've owned their own share of the misery, they've agreed on the terms of engagement. How do we try and future-proof this reunion? Using lessons learned from the time apart.
Right, the interregnum. We need to harvest two key things from that period: appreciation and humility.
Appreciation and humility. Let's start with appreciation.
What virtues, what positive qualities in your ex did you only really realize you deeply valued once they were gone? Maybe it was their quiet competence, or their calm in a crisis, or even just the way they made coffee, things you completely took for granted.
Things that only became clear in their absence.
Yeah.
Got it. And second, humility. I'm guessing this is where dating other people often comes in?
Yeah, absolutely. A capacity for eating humble pie is, well, it's pretty essential here. Meeting other people, going on those awkward first dates, maybe enduring some rejections, that whole process can really bring home the stark realization that the partner you left, despite all their flaws, was actually a remarkably good person in specific, maybe non-obvious ways.
The flaws of others suddenly make the merits of your ex stand out more clearly.
Precisely. It provides crucial perspective. But, okay, even with appreciation and humility, conflict will return eventually. How does the exam try to ensure that diplomacy replaces the old warfare?
Yeah, how do you stop falling back into the same old destructive patterns?
Through a proactive exercise we call conflict diplomacy. The task here is for the couple to define, together, maybe 6 common, high-probability arguments that might occur in the future.
Things they fought about before.
Exactly. Things like one person being too busy at work again, or a disagreement about money, maybe flirting, or just sheer tiredness leading to snapping. Common triggers. And they have to analyze these potential flashpoints proactively before they happen.
So for each potential fight, they have to kind of pre-engineer a different response, a better outcome.
Yes. For example, if they predict future conflict about, say, one partner being too busy at work, they have to define specifically, how will the non-busy partner express their feelings without resorting to accusations of neglect? What's the script? And maybe, what will the busy partner do proactively to mitigate it? Perhaps they prearrange a small gift, or they guarantee a specific 3-hour window of focused time on Saturday, no matter what work says.
They define what could be done other than just escalating or threaten to break up again.
Exactly. How might actual diplomacy replace the usual warfare? What are the specific steps?
This whole process is incredibly thorough, which brings us, I think, to the final and maybe the most intimidating part of the whole examination, involving the third party, the skeptical friend.
Ah, yes, the ultimate litmus test. This is where the hard-headed realism has to come absolutely to the fore. No hiding. Think about who you turned to during the worst of the breakup. Who did you cry to? Who listened for hours? It was probably that wise, skeptical friend who heard all the details, who knows the encyclopedic history of the entire trauma.
Right. The one who kept saying, you deserve better or don't go back.
Exactly. It would be utterly foolish not to utilize that accumulated wisdom now.
And that friend is the perfect referee, in a way, because they're emotionally uninvested in the reunion itself. They probably don't love the ex, certainly won't sleep with the ex.
And crucially, they only stand to face the downside, which is having to listen to the whole disaster unfold again if it goes wrong. That makes them incredibly clear-eyed.
So the process is designed to be intimidating.
By design, the returning ex must agree to meet this friend, one-on-one, no backup. If the ex can sit down with this battle-wearied, objective person and actually convince them that real, substantial change has occurred, well, that's incredibly strong evidence in their favor.
And if the ex refuses, if they say, no way am I talking to your friend,
Reunion is immediately off the table. No discussion. They're clearly avoiding the most truthful, objective mirror they have available. It signals they know they can't pass the test.
okay. And the friend isn't just having a chat. They're given a specific task, right?
A scorecard.
A scorecard, yes.
Right.
For the final viability assessment, they are scoring the X on specifics, not just general feelings.
What are they scoring?
Out of 10, typically, on things like,
Yeah.
how clearly does the X understand the problems they brought to the relationship? How well can they articulate the changes they've made? What's their level of defensiveness when challenged? What have they really understood about themselves? And crucially, how might they manage future conflict more successfully?
Wow. That's detailed. The friend essentially becomes the final jury.
They deliver the ultimate verdict based on that structured assessment. Yes or no, is this viable overall? That third-party objectivity is designed to ensure the decision is grounded in a harsh external reality, not just a mutual, potentially fleeting desire. This is such a fascinating, almost counterintuitive framework. We started by noting that we humans often make these huge, life-altering decisions: who we partner with, who we restart a life with, often just on a whim, right? Driven by desperate feelings, loneliness, hope.
And the whole point of this reentry examination is to force us to replace that emotional whim with deliberate intellectual rigor. The core philosophical idea here, I suppose, is that we properly honor love, real love, and maybe spare ourselves these endless, painful cycles of dismay only when we learn to follow the steady, sobering dictates of, well, a beautifully tedious logic.
Beautifully tedious logic. I like that.
The path back isn't paved with grand passions and renewed feelings alone. It has to be paved with meticulous, unflinching, analytical self-criticism from both sides.
It's a compelling synthesis. It really brings us to a final thought, doesn't it? If a potential relationship reunion cannot withstand 7 hours of hard, analytical conversation, if it can't handle the mutual admission of unbearable flaws, and if it can't face the intense scrutiny of one truly skeptical friend, well, what does that actually tell you about the relationship's true foundation versus its potentially fragile emotional surface? That really seems like the only question that matters before you even think about moving back in together.